Okay, so for our second folder, you need 2 pieces of acetate. Well, 1 or 2. You have an option on this one. That are 7.5 by 7.5. Lightweight chipboard, 8 by 8. Cardstock at 10 by 10 to wrap that. My pieces are out of order here. I apologize. Another piece that is 8 by 8 that's going to be the cover so that this is all completely wrapped. You're going to have a frame flap. The base for that is going to be 9 1/4 by 8. The top of that is going to be 9 1/4 by 8 5/8. And this is where you have an option. You can cut the frame into this piece only, or you can cut it into both so you see all the way through your pocket. Okay. We have a front flap that is 8 inches by 9 inches. We have a closure that is 8 inches by 5 inches. And we have a pocket that's going to go on the back, which has been scored and trimmed because I've already screwed this up once today. And this is 9 by 4. Okay. So let's start with wrapping our chipboard. So we're going to take our 10 by 10 and we're going to score it at 1 inch on all 4 sides. Okay. And then I'm going to take my glue. You could use score tape sheets if you wanted to. I am actually going to glue this. Maybe. Okay. And we're going to put that down in between our score lines. Okay. I'm going to flip this over, burnish it on the back, just to spread my glue around, make sure everything's adhered. I'm going to cut my corners out, just like we do when we're wrapping a normal album with normal chipboard, not lightweight chipboard. Okay, and then we're going to fold this over. And the reason we scored this first is because normally I would use the chipboard and kind of fold it like that. With the lightweight, it's kind of hard to do that and not end up accidentally bending your chipboard, which we don't want to do. So that's why we're scoring it, just so we can line it up right and so that we can, you know, have that help. So I'm just checking my corners. Make sure nothing's hanging over so I have nice clean corners. Mitering them where they need it. That way everything wraps nicely. Okay. And then we're going to take our 1/4 inch score tape. We're going to go around this just like we would on a normal album when wrapping our covers. And this is just going to be the base for this picture folder, photo folder, whatever you want to call it. And the reason we're using lightweight chipboard is we don't want it to be like super bulky and super heavy, but we want it to have a little bit of stiffness that we could probably get using Artisan, but I think this is a good kind of in-between that will work really nicely. Okay. Alright, so we're going to get our backing off of our score tape. And then we're going to do like we normally do when wrapping our covers. We're going to come along here, and in this space where there's no tape, with our glue, and burnish that down. And then you're going to make sure that this piece doesn't hang over your edges at all. If you cut it just a hair under 8 by 8, you should be okay. And you take just a tiny bit more off of this one. And we'll go ahead and glue this one down as well. Okay. Burnish this down. Okay, so there's our base piece. I'm going to move this off to the side and grab the scoreboard again. So the pocket that will eventually go on the back in here is 9 by 4. With 9 inch at the top, you're going to score 1/2 inch, turn it, 1/2 inch again, turn 1/2 inch. You're going to do the slight miter on the top 2 corners and then cut out the entire corner on the bottom 2 corners. Okay. For our closure, this is 8 by 5. We're going to score this at 1 inch and 1.5 inches. Okay. We're going to set that aside. Our front flap is 8 by 9. We're going to score this at 1/2 inch and again at 1 inch. And again, set that aside for right now. That does need to go on before we put our flap down, but we're going to leave it for right now. Okay, so for the top part of our frame, this is 9 1/4 by 8 5/8. Starting with the 9 1/4 at the top, you're going to score at 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch. Turn, 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch. Turn it again, 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch. Okay. This one, on our top, we're going to miter on the top from the outside score line, so the 1/2 inch score line out. On the bottom, we are going to go all the way across. So you've got this little intersection here that you can see where you've got this little square in the middle here. You're going to go right through the middle of that when you miter this corner. Okay. And then you're going to come in here and you're going to trim out the rest of that little corner. Okay. So this is what you're going to end up with. So again, we've got that little tiny triangle there, and just on the score lines, you're going to cut that out. Okay. Our other piece to our frame is 9 1/4 by 8. We're going to score this at 1/2 inch. That doesn't seem right. Yes, it does. 1/2 inch and then 3/4 inch. I think that's right. No, it's not. I'm sorry. 1 inch and 1 1/4 inches. I know what I'm trying to do. I really do, I promise. So I'm just going to turn this over and go on the back side of the 2 lines that I don't really need. And just kind of erase them. All right, so 1 inch, 1 1/4 inch. I'm going to set this one aside for just a second. And we're going to do our frame. So if you're just doing this top part only, you're going to come in here. You're going to come in 1 inch with your ruler from the top of your pocket. And you're going to draw a line. Okay? And it didn't draw all the way across, but it's mostly there. You can tell. Okay? From your next side, we're going to go 1 inch from the inside score line, so the 1/8 inch score line, and you're going to draw another line. Again, on the next side, you're going to start at that 1/8 inch score line, and draw another line. And then one last time. Okay. And then I am going to use my paper trimmer wherever I've lost it. You can do this with a ruler and a craft knife. You can do it with your scissors if you're really talented. I am not that talented. And we're going to cut this out. Just lining up that little guide wire that's in the Fiskars trimmer, or at least my Fiskars trimmer, I don't know if it's on all of them, in there to cut out that frame. If you have anywhere you didn't totally get through, I just come back with my scissors and trim that last little tiny piece that didn't get cut. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and if I have any lines that went over or right on the edge there, I'm going to go ahead and erase those. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to the back side. I'm going to take my acetate and my score tape. And I'm going to run my score tape around the outside edge of my acetate. If you've watched the first folder, then you know that I put it on the paper instead of on to the acetate. That was because that one was cut a lot closer than this one is. And since this one is not as tight as far as between your opening and the size of your piece of acetate, and the way this one's going together, it doesn't need to be right up at the edge. Okay. Center that up, get that down. I'm going to turn this over, and on the outside edge, I'm going to go ahead and put score tape on the outside edge of my tabs for my frame. Because this frame has a slight gusset, it's a little bit trickier to put together. So the score tape does help. Okay, so you could leave this as is, put it down on this, and just have it one-sided. Or you can cut another frame into this back piece, and then you'll see all the way through to whatever is on the inside of your back cover. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, just because I like it when they go all the way through. And we're just doing the same thing again, because this one doesn't have gussets. We're going to go from this outside edge 1 inch, 1 inch from this outside edge, one inch again, and my ruler moved, so let's try that again. And this is why I don't cut them out with a craft knife, because that's what happens to me every time without fail, is the ruler will slide just ever so slightly, and then the whole thing's off. Okay, so we're going from our closest inside score mark and we're going to go 1 inch. Alright, we're going to do the same thing again to cut it out, but before we do that, I am going to line this up on here. I'm going to line this up at the top between the score marks, so where this frame would act, if everything was folded in, where the frame would sit. And I'm just going to make sure that what I'm seeing here, I'm not seeing my lines that I just drew like inside where this opening is. Okay, everything looks good. So we'll go ahead and cut out our frame. Okay, so let's get this frame piece out. All right, so now we can go ahead and get our acetate on this side as well. On this one, we're going to do it on the front of the flap because that's where our pocket is going to go. Actually, no, it's not. It's going to go on the back. Okay, one more. Again, we are backing up our tape. So we'll put this down. And then we will assemble our pocket. And then get everything into our folder base. Okay, so I'm just centering that up. Close to center as I can get. Okay, so I'm going to fold at my 1/2 inch score line. I'm not going to fold my 1/8 inch just yet. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead, pull that backing off. And I'm going to run just a tiny bit of glue along this edge. And we are going to line this up somewhere here, just above the score line, side to side on this pocket. Okay. All right. So now I am going to take my ruler, I'm going to hold it against the other score line, or hold it down on here against the other score line. Use that to help me fold that other score line back. So there's our 1/8 inch gusset. Kind of hard to see, but it's there. I don't do them this small very often because it is kind of hard to bend them, but it just will give you that little bit of room inside that pocket that you need. So just working that down so that we get that 1/8 of an inch there, and then pop it back up, and there we go. Okay, we may need to take just a hair off the top of this, but I think we'll be okay. Okay, so now for our sides, we're going to fold both of our score lines, so the 1/2 inch and the 1/8 of an inch. And it is kind of hard, but it is easier to do it after you've got the bottom part did down than to have those folded and try to line this up and put it down at the same time. That's where things go wrong, and then nothing lines up. Okay, so this is going to come over like so, and I am just going to come in here with my bone folder, and I am going to burnish that down and make sure that that bottom score line, so that 1/2 inch line, is where it needs to be, so that when we close this up, it's sitting in the right place. Okay. And what we can do to help that is get that where it needs to be and clip it up here at the top so that it stays folded where it needs to be, so we can get it pushed down without it bowing out or going too far in. That's what we're trying to avoid. We want it just exactly where it needs to be, and even then that's really not helping too much. Okay, so let's do this other side as well. And you are going to have to work this a little bit to get it to go where you want it to go. Show that paper you're in charge. Okay, so I'm just going to fold it up again, dry fit it, make sure it's sitting where I want it to go, and we're good. And then I'm going to come in here, I'm going to pull off my score tape. I am not going to use glue just yet, because if this doesn't go where I want it to go, and we've used glue, you have to tear it apart and start over. If all we've got on here is the score tape, because the score tape is going on top of this acetate, you can very easily pull it up and start again. Okay. There we go. Now we got it lined up right. What I can do is come in here with that nice little fine tip on my glue and get a little bit of glue in there to seal at that edge. Yeah, I'm recording.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. There you go. So let's grab our base. Let's grab our front flap. We're going to fold and burnish and fold and burnish. Okay. Miter that ever so slightly. And we'll go ahead and put this one down. Okay. Leave that open because this one is going to come in this way. So I'm going to fold that, not fold that 1/4 inch yet. Okay. Just make sure I'm doing this the right way, the way I wanted it to go. I'm not. Okay. I want to fold that flap towards the pocket. Okay. So when we have that little 1/4 inch gusset, it's going to sit at the bottom of this pocket. Okay. And that's going to allow that pocket to open up and to fold shut flat. Okay. So let's miter that just a tiny bit. And then we will get our glue on here. And then this is going to go right here, centered up side to side. Don't do it that way. There we go. And burnish this down. And then our pocket sits nice and flat in there. Just need to push that gusset back just a touch because it's not quite folded where I want it to. Okay. And then this will close over the front. And that's actually standing up just a little higher than it's supposed to be. So I will come in here and trim that off because you can see right there. And I should have checked that before we put it down. I apologize. So I will come through and trim that off. Not a big deal. Easily fixable. Okay. And then we have our pocket. And you can decide if you want it on this side or if you want it on this side. I think I want it down here, quite honestly. I think we got enough going on up there. I think this will make a nice addition to this lower flap when you open this up. To have this sitting down here. This will go here. Okay. Okay. And the only thing that is not on here yet is this closure. It will go on here and come over the top. But again, I'm going to either use an edgeable or like an edge punch on this, so I'm not going to put that on there yet. This will get a ribbon closure as well, but for the most part, that one is done as well. And there we go.